Hello parents, my name is Lungile Mangena. I'm a clinical psychologist, and today I just really want us to talk about a very sensitive topic and very difficult topic, which is looking at our behaviors as parents, our parenting behaviors as parents towards our children, that they can be controlled and influenced by the way we were parented when we were once children. I'm going to say that again, so we're all on the same page. Today we're going to unpack and explore how our behaviors as parents towards our children is largely influenced, not all the time, but most of the time, is largely influenced by the way we were parented when we were children. Okay, so the way I choose to discipline my child, the way I understand and see my child's mind as well as my child's emotions is largely, not all the time, but most of the time, influenced by the way my mind when I was a child and my feelings when I was a child were understood and were seen. Okay, so to explain this, I'm going to use an example. Okay, so let's say when you were a child, and let's say you were the firstborn child, for example, which happens a lot in most families. You were the firstborn child and you've got very, very, very young siblings. You know, there's a big age gap between you and your younger siblings. And then you find that a lot of responsibilities were placed on you when you were a child. Okay, you had to cook and clean and wash your sisters and your brothers and your siblings' clothes and all of that stuff. You had to look after your siblings when they were babies and still have to go to school and come back and change their nappies, you know, and still have to study for your tests and exams. So a lot of responsibilities were put on you when you were a child. So if ever you tried to complain or cry to your parents and say, this is too much for me, I can't seem to cope with my schoolwork because of all these responsibilities, you know, this makes me feel like in this family I'm not loved. It makes me feel like in this family I'm not valued. You know, it makes me feel like in this family as a child, I'm just not wanted in this family. And then now we look at how your parent may have responded when you expressed your thoughts, which is your mind, as well as your feelings. Were they understood or not? So now, if your parents now start saying that after you've expressed such painful feelings, and then your parent says, you never speak to me like that. I am your mother. Don't you disrespect me like that. Don't you know that I am your parent? I am the one who will tell you what to do. You must listen to what I tell you what to do and don't question what I'm telling you what to do. I don't care how you feel. This is what you as a child are supposed to do in this house. So now that experience for this child, the child's feelings and the child's thoughts were never understood. The child's feelings and the child's thoughts were never validated. And as a result, now this child continues growing up feeling unwanted, unloved, not good enough, you know, like a burden. And worse, you find that the same parent will start punishing the child for having these feelings, such as hitting the child or saying, calling the child names, you know, so the child begins to be punished for having these feelings. Now remember, now this child grows up and becomes an adult, and then one day they have their own children. Remember, we're talking about how our behaviors as parents that we show our children, is largely influenced by the way our feelings, our minds were seen when we were children. Okay, so now this same parent now becomes, the same child grows up and becomes a parent, and they have their own child. And then now their child comes back from school and says, you know what, mommy, today my best friend stabbed me in the back, and my best friend I found, and I was told that was gossiping about me, and I caught my best friend gossiping about me, and my best friend then called me names, and that really hurt my feelings, mommy. That made me feel very sad. Okay, so now remember, the same mother or the same parent, when they expressed their feelings of sadness, they were punished. Their feelings were minimized. Their feelings were unseen. Okay, so the way that this parent is going to respond to this child may be largely influenced by how their own mind and their own feelings were handled when they were a child. Unconsciously now, the same parent may find themselves punishing their own child for having these feelings. The same parent may unconsciously find themselves saying the exact same things that were said to them when they were children. Now they find themselves minimizing, undermining, dismissing, overlooking the child's feelings and punishing the child for having these feelings. And then now this child stops talking to the parent, and sometimes even this child may develop a mental illness, depression or anxiety, for example, because I am unseen in my family. I am unheard in my family. And you may find that when we actually start speaking with the parent more in depth, you find that the same parent was also made to have the same feelings. When their needs were unmet, it made the parent feel depressed. It made the parent feel anxious. Now, the same parent is making their own child feel depressed and feel anxious. And remember, all of this happens unconsciously. You don't decide that this is how I'm going to respond. It all happens unconsciously. So now what happens is we end up having a generation of children with depression and anxiety, and then when this child grows up and becomes a parent, there are high chances as well that this child would do the exact same thing to their own child when they become parents. And then now the depression and anxiety is just every child that is born into this lineage of the family is going to be predisposed to developing a mental illness. Okay, so at some point, this cycle has to break. At some point, I, as a parent, when I'm beginning to see that I am handling and managing my child the same way that my feelings and my thoughts were handled and managed, I need to raise my hand and get help. There is help, there is support for parents. Find yourself a psychologist who's going to now take you through your own childhood traumas and help you process your own childhood traumas so that you can be able to be present with your child and be able to respond effectively to your child's emotional needs, as well as understand your child's emotions or feelings or thoughts. Okay, so it's a hard one, parents. However, it requires us to raise our hands and break the cycle of our children being predisposed to developing a mental